Hello, welcome to Pekin Valley Life. My name's Ethan, and this is part 4 of our cancer story.
Bags are packed, are you ready to go?
So when you last saw me, I had just been reclassified as stage 4. I was skinny, I was sickly, and we were both scared of what was to come. Any options for surgery were now out of the question, and the only thing that they really had to offer me was a chemoimmunotherapy cocktail, and that would be something that I would do until it stopped working anymore. I'm here at the hospital now. I'm starting my new treatment for chemoimmunotherapy. This is one of my last chances at life. I said I'm not nervous about the effects of this. There's a lot on this. There's a lot on this protocol. Obviously, grappling with the reality of this was very difficult for Terry and I, but we tried to take it as best we could and look to see what these new treatments could offer us.
At this time, Ethan was still unable to eat and was receiving all of his nutritional needs through his tracheostomy tube. In an effort to improve his quality of life, his gastroenterologist suggested we try dilations. This is a procedure where doctors guide a thin tube into the esophagus and place a small balloon inside the narrowed area. The balloon is then gently inflated, stretching the scar tissue just enough to widen the passage. This has to be done very gradually to avoid tearing the delicate esophagus. Each dilation aimed to stretch the esophagus by around 5 millimeters a time. And so this became our new normal. 1 week, Ethan would receive his immunotherapy infusion at the local hospital, and the next week we would travel to Chambéry for a dilation. After 4 dilations, Ethan was eating soft foods again. He was gaining weight and starting to feel hopeful. This was the perfect time to tick off some more bucket list items. So instead of sitting around anxiously waiting for test results, we decided to go and make memories with a Christmas trip to Florence, Ethan's dream city. He had long wanted to see the works of the great Renaissance masters. For the first time in a very long time, we traded Jaime, our motorhome, for a hotel in the city centre. That way, if Ethan felt unwell, we could retreat and rest. But mostly, we wandered around Florence, soaking in its beauty and making memories. Accompanied, of course, by Sid. Later that evening, once Sid was tucked up in bed, we ventured out again to see the Christmas lights and to catch our first glimpse of the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, topped, of course, by Brunelleschi's gravity-defying dome. By night, the marble shimmers, white, green, and red, glowing against the dark sky. It's a sight to behold. We devoted the entirety of the next day to visiting the Uffizi, a gallery as beautiful as the art it contains. We spent many hours admiring the great works, but a few in particular spoke to us. Caravaggio's Medusa confronts you, that wild, frozen scream, the eyes locked in terror. It's raw, violent, unavoidable, like staring into the face of fear itself, something we had had to do often over the past few months. And just steps away, one of Botticelli's masterpieces, Primavera or Spring, fills the entire room with life, flowers bursting, figures dancing, nature awakening. Could we dare to hope? And of course, no trip to Florence is complete without a visit to see Michelangelo's David, encapsulating the story of a young shepherd boy who faced off against a giant, Goliath, armed with nothing but a sling. We couldn't help but draw parallels to our own story.
Florence was so good for us. It gave us a chance to finally recharge both emotionally and mentally and carry on this battle.
Once we got back home, Ethan headed to Chambéry for his 5th dilation. The hope was that this one would finally get him to the full 12 millimeters so he could enjoy solid food again. But things didn't go as planned. During the procedure, his esophagus tore. To protect the tear, doctors placed a stent to hold everything open and stop any leaks. The stent caused Ethan a lot of pain, but the upside was that he could finally eat anything he wanted, a trade-off we were willing to take, since the stent would only stay in for 1 month.
So to be honest, the stent hurt like hell, but it was completely worth it. To be able to sit with my wife and eat like a normal person, like a human really, it was worth any discomfort or pain I might have, and I only had to live with it for a month, and I would trade that any day.
In January, we celebrated Ethan's 51st birthday, a milestone we once weren't sure we'd see. Living with stage 4 cancer, moments like these feel less ordinary and more like a gift.
Happy birthday, darling.
The following week, Ethan's brother Gabe and another family member, Jimmy, came to visit us from America. It was a joyful time. We shared meals, we went to restaurants, and even managed a family ski trip.
Well, I think we're going to have a beautiful day up there. A few less clouds.
Terry by yourself. Sorry. Wow.
It was hard to believe that just a year earlier, we'd been skiing and filming our YouTube series in the Haute Maurienne Vanoise when Ethan's diagnosis had turned our lives upside down. We never imagined we'd be back on the slopes together.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure.
Skiing with my brother was amazing. To think that a year ago I thought I would never ski again, but to be here with him and Terry on the slopes, it was a gift. One night when I was sleeping, my feeding tube had fallen out. By the time I had realized it, the hole had closed up, and if I wanted to have a feeding tube, I would have to have another surgery to put it back in. To be honest, I had a bit of PTSD at this point around the hospitals and surgeries, so we decided just to go it without the feeding tube for a while. So after the feeding tube incident, we did receive some good news, and that is my first scan came back, and it was clear. The immunotherapy was working, my blood markers were down, and the relief in this household was unbelievable. We could finally breathe again. We could really see some future and some hope, and things were looking up.
Around this time, Ethan's aunt and uncle visited us from the US. With Ethan feeling strong enough, we led them to some of our favourite spots. We wandered through Annecy, a charming town cradled by one of France's most beautiful lakes, the surrounding mountains mirrored in its calm water. We ambled through the pretty streets, making sure we didn't miss any opportunity to capture precious memories. We took gentle walks in the mountains, sharing with them our beloved peaks. Spring lambs grazed in the field, and flowers were in full bloom. The air was alive with a sense of joy and renewal. We knew this farewell was going to be a difficult one, so in order to leave things on a high note, on the way back to the airport in Geneva, we stopped at Aix-les-Bains. And with everyone being from Las Vegas, we decided a trip to the casino was in order.
In April, we celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary, and on that exact same day, we received the results from my second scan, and once again, they were clear. It was the best anniversary gift that either one of us could have possibly hoped for. Unfortunately, also at this time, some familiar problems started to happen again. Eating started to become difficult. Food was not passing the way it had done previously, and I was very suspicious that once again my esophagus was starting to close up. This was even more stressful because I no longer had a feeding tube, and if I wasn't getting the nutrition I needed by mouth, then I was gonna start dropping weight again. So to work on this problem, my gastro doc referred me to the University Hospital in Grenoble, where they would try a new procedure that I hoped would work better than the dilations. Instead of inserting a balloon inside my scar tissue to stretch it, they would take a laser scalpel and make incisions on the scar tissue, and this would relieve the tension, allowing it to open more freely. But unfortunately, when I woke up, it was not the news that I was hoping for. My esophagus was too fragile, and the doctor said it was too dangerous for this procedure for me. So instead, he inserted another stent. Whereas the first stent was in for just 1 month, this one would live with me for the next 6 months. While my first stent was painful, this second stent was on a whole new level. Whereas before morphine could keep the pain in check, it was barely touching the sides of this new level of pain. I had arrived from my next chemoimmunotherapy session, and I basically broke down in my oncologist's office. I couldn't cope with it anymore. On top of the pain, I couldn't eat. Everything tasted terrible. I had zero appetite. My oncologist said that she'd hoped that the eating would get better as my stent healed. But for the pain, there was only one thing she could do, and that was to start me on a 24/7 program of fentanyl. The fentanyl gave me a lot of pain relief, to be sure, but I also got a bunch of side effects, and those included nausea, fatigue, dizziness. That first week or two was a very tough balancing act between trying to manage the pain relief and not being overwhelmed by the side effects. Well, my oncologist thought that this was most likely because of my stent procedure. She was also very troubled by all these new symptoms all at once, and because of that, she ordered another PET scan just to make sure that they were in fact from the stent, or in case that there might be progression again of my cancer. So, hello. We're back in Chambéry again.
Yep.
I'm going for a PET scan because they're a bit nervous because my symptoms have been acting up. So, just to be safe, they've sent me for a scan a month early.
Yeah.
Yes.
So symptoms were extreme fatigue, some weight loss, and the cancer
Biomarker.
markers are
Yeah.
elevated. So to be on the safe side, we're coming for a scan.
Yeah. Luckily, some of those side effects or symptoms, I should say, have decreased. So I'm hoping this will just show that nothing to be seen. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, we've had two previous scans, all showed no progression.
Yeah. So we're hoping third time's a charm.
Yep.
And yeah,
We'll let you know when we know.
when we know something, we'll let you know.
A week after his scan, Ethan set off for his regular infusion appointment. He left that morning just as normal. But barely an hour later, he was home again. The look on his face told me everything. The cancer had progressed. The scan showed retroperitoneal lymph node involvement. After months of hope and clear scans, the disease was moving again. Once more, we were headed into a valley.
It's difficult for me to say, but out of everything that happened up until this point, I think this was the most devastating. I thought that we'd figured it out. I thought that I was just going to keep getting better. And to hear the words progression was an incredibly difficult blow for me.
Please help to support the channel by liking and subscribing. You will also find a link below to buy us a coffee. Every coffee that we receive helps us to continue documenting this journey. If you or a loved one are suffering from this terrible disease, we have left some links in the comments below to resources that we have found to be both supportive and informative during this journey. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.